Okay, let's unpack this.
Please do.
We are diving into a deep and incredibly focused set of sources today, specifically from Andrew Murray's The Spiritual Life.
Chapter 3, the fruit of the Spirit is love.
Exactly. And our mission today is really practical. We want to get past the theory, past all the talk about power, and straight into the how.
That's such a critical distinction because when people talk about wanting a spirit-filled life, they tend to go one of two ways.
Okay.
Either they get really doctrinal, like Romans 8, walking in the Spirit, all the theology, or they focus on the power component.
The Old Testament model.
Yes. The power to witness, the power for ministry, the power to do things.
Right, they want the energy to drive the engine.
But Murray argues, and this is the key, that this focus completely inverts the divine priority.
How so?
The great object of the Holy Spirit isn't fundamentally about generating external power for work. It's about the internal formation of a holy character.
And that character isn't just a vague, be a good person idea.
Not at all. It has a singular, specific, and a very visible manifestation. The whole thesis we're using today comes from Galatians 5:22.
The fruit of the Spirit is love.
That's the one. Everything else, all the joy, the peace, the patience, it all flows from that single root.
So for this whole deep dive, we're using that idea of love as a kind of spiritual searchlight.
And a test, an absolute test.
Because if your experience of a spirit-filled life doesn't actually translate into a real, undeniable increase of love in your daily conduct,
then you have to ask, what are you actually prioritizing? What's really going on?
So let's start at the beginning. What's fascinating here is, to even understand why love is the fruit, you have to understand the source.
You have to go all the way back. We have to ground this idea not in, human emotion.
Not our version of love.
But in deity itself, the core concept that God is love.
And that's not just an attribute. He has, justice or wisdom.
No, it's the very essence of who he is. It's his nature.
That distinction is just paramount. Because if God's fundamental nature is love, then the Holy Spirit, who comes from God,
has no choice. He has to come to us as the Spirit of love.
And if God is love, that love can't just be static or, self-contained.
It has to be active, has to be outflowing. That's why 1 Corinthians 13 is so important here. Divine love seeketh not its own.
It can't look inward.
It must go out of itself and live entirely in its object.
So, wait, if this love is inherently outflowing, this has to connect directly to the idea of the Trinity, right? How does that work?
Well, think about it. If God were perfectly loving but totally alone, that love has no object. The definition just collapses.
So his loving nature actually necessitates communion.
Exactly. And the source material describes the Holy Spirit as the bond of fellowship between the Father and the Son.
Like the current between them.
You could think of it like that. It's the overflowing and interchange of the love between Father and Son. The Spirit is the very life of deity.
Wow. So the Spirit that comes to live in us is literally drawing us into that same relational flow of love that exists eternally.
Precisely. It's not some external power booster. It's an invitation into the divine life.
And that love has to go somewhere.
It has to communicate itself. Which brings us to creation. God creates the world, angels, men, to pour out this divine love, to communicate his nature. The whole point was for us to enjoy fellowship with him by participating in that same love.
But then the system broke. Sin entered the picture.
And it didn't just break a few rules, it fundamentally destroyed that innate self-giving love.
And it replaced it with one thing.
Selfishness.
That's the great spiritual loss.
Yeah.
The source points out the results were immediate. Adam blames his wife.
Shifting responsibility. Cain kills Abel out of envy. The world just fills with division, strife, wickedness, all because the natural outflow of love got jammed up by self-interest.
The worst thing sin ever did, according to this, was making us fundamentally selfish.
And we have to define that selfish love because it's the ultimate counterfeit.
It is. It's conditional, right?
Completely. It operates on a kind of internal calculation. It lets you love someone who benefits you or pleases you or makes you feel important.
But it's totally incapable of loving the unworthy.
Or the unlovable.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have the divine power to love when there is absolutely nothing in it for you.
That makes the test immediately challenging. Forget the unlovable man for a second. Just that subtle professional envy or, giving only when you know you'll get recognition.
Those are all signs of that counterfeit love running the show. The natural man can love, but he can't love divinely.
Which is why Jesus came.
He was the perfect manifestation of that divine love, loving his own unto the end, all the way.
And he brought the answer to the counterfeit which takes us to John 13 and the new commandment.
Love one another.
Now, this was revolutionary, but not because the words were new.
No, the idea of loving your neighbor was ancient. It was new because Christ revealed a new kind of love, a perfect self-sacrificial love.
And crucially,
He promised to actually give it to the hearts of his followers through the Holy Spirit.
so the law wasn't new. The power source was new. And he made this the one single visible mark of being his disciple.
The world isn't meant to know God's love by our perfect theology or our great buildings,
But by our love for one another.
which is why the ultimate demand feels so extreme, often impossible. He asks us to walk in this love, even to those who hate us.
True, divine love cannot be conquered by anything.
The more hatred it faces, the more it's actually designed to triumph.
Okay, that's the theory. But let's look at the disciples before the Spirit came. They spent 3 years with the literal embodiment of love.
And they failed the test over and over again.
It just shows the total inability of human nature on its own to do this.
The source points to their constant bickering as to who should be chief in the kingdom.
It's all pride.
It reveals a profound pride and a fundamental want of love. They kept trying to apply divine teaching with purely human, selfish power, and it just led to division.
Which brings us to Pentecost. And we always focus on the spectacle, don't we? The wind, the fire, the tongue.
The external display of power. But the true miracle, according to Murray, was the internal infusion.
The Holy Spirit came to bring the very life and love of Jesus into their hearts.
Making the impossible command.
Suddenly possible.
And the change is immediate. It's undeniable. Before Pentecost, after 3 years with Jesus, they were divided and scattered.
Anxious.
Definitely not of one heart and one soul. But then you read Acts 2 and 4 after the Spirit comes.
And they have this profound unified communion.
The teaching alone couldn't do it. Only the power of the indwelling Spirit of love could.
And this is where the fruit finally appears in their daily lives, in their conduct.
Exactly. This divine love is the root, and it produces all these resulting virtues.
Joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness.
Goodness, meekness, all of them are just different expressions, different flavors of divine love made manifest.
But here's the detail that's often kind of shocking to modern readers.
You're talking about the emphasis on the gentler virtues.
I am. When we think of Spirit-filled people today, we often highlight the, quote, manly virtues.
Right. We look for courage, zeal, diligence, bold confrontation.
We prize the warrior spirit.
We do.
Yeah.
But the list in Galatians emphasizes meekness, kindness, humbleness of mind, long-suffering.
And Murray stresses that these gentler virtues are the truly heavenly graces.
Because they never were found in the heathen world. Christ had to come from heaven to teach us that our true glory is found in humility. Our blessedness is in long-suffering.
Let's pause on that, because that just flies in the face of so much of what the world considers strength. Many people see meekness and humility as weakness, as being a doormat.
Right.
Is Murray saying kindness is enough when you're facing real injustice or evil?
No, but he's totally redefining spiritual strength. He's arguing that these gentler virtues are the highest form of strength.
Because they require what?
Supreme self-abnegation. It takes so much more divine strength to respond to hatred with long-suffering love than it does to respond with self-righteous anger.
The anger is powered by the flesh.
Exactly. But the former, the gentleness, that requires the full force of the Spirit of God.
So here's where it becomes the searchlight. If the Spirit's primary mission is this divine self-sinking love, what does a lack of love reveal about us, about the church right now?
Well, Murray argues, pretty devastatingly, that the lack of love has caused these sad divisions all through church history.
The focus shifted.
It tragically shifted from love as the supreme bond to the supremacy of doctrines and creeds.
The historical examples in the sources are jarring. They mention the terrible quarrels over the Lord's Supper between the Reformed and the Lutherans.
Think about that. They were arguing over how Christ was present in the bread and wine.
A subtle theological point.
And in doing so, they completely failed to fulfill Christ's prayer for unity. Something meant to be a bond of union communion became a badge of separation.
Used to justify harshness and exclusion.
And this applies directly to today, doesn't it? We see this constantly online, in culture war debates.
Absolutely. The warning is we have to speak the truth, yes, but always in love.
Being valiant for the truth or for your correct political stance is never an excuse for unkindness or harshness.
If we lack love, we're showing that we've picked our doctrine or our political win as a higher good than the fruit of the Spirit.
And it's not just about historical schisms. The source brings this test right down to the local immediate level.
Church committees, prayer groups, the workplace.
Even the family. Wherever earnest Christians gather is their jealousy, harsh judgment, evil speaking.
Look for the subtle stuff. The quick temper, the impatience with someone's incompetence, that refusal to forgive a slight.
The outburst of temper and haste at home shows a failure to truly count love as the chief fruit.
So the aim has to be this radical self-sinking. Any desire to be filled with the Spirit that isn't centered on willingly yielding the self down in humility
Is fundamentally flawed. We have to let the love of God become the life of our life.
Which leads us to the ultimate hard-hitting application from the Apostle John.
He creates this necessary link between the invisible love for God and the visible love for our neighbor.
John's test is so solemn. If we love one another, God dwells in us.
We can't see God.
But we can see our brother or sister right in front of us. So loving them is the only direct path to real fellowship with the invisible God.
And that's where we get the famous, powerful conclusion, the liar test.
1 John 4:20. If a man says he loves God and hates his brother, he's a liar.
It's so challenging because it means the very thing that feels easiest, judging others for their failures, is exactly what the Spirit comes to destroy.
The source material just makes this unavoidable. It presents a scenario directly to you, the listener. You encounter a most unlovable man.
Maybe it's that colleague who is just unbusinesslike and drives you crazy, or the relative with political views you despise.
Or just someone whose disposition repels you.
And you feel that immediate inner resistance. You think, I cannot love him.
And the self-judgment is instant. My unlovable man is the person who constantly misuses my time. I feel immediate and what feels like justifiable irritation.
And the conclusion from John is just unavoidable. If you do not love the unlovable man whom you have seen,
The one God has placed right in your path.
how can you possibly claim to love God whom you have not seen?
Wow, so your love for God is judged, it's measured, it's proven, not by your doctrinal correctness,
Or your zeal.
but by your daily, patient, long-suffering love for your most difficult neighbor.
And nothing less than the fullness of the Holy Spirit can enable a person to live this way, to live this unceasing life of unconquerable love.
The two texts are inseparable.
Be filled with the Spirit, and the fruit of the Spirit is love. If you want the character of Christ, you have to accept the Spirit of love as the divine life force of your being.
So what does this all mean? The core learning here is that the true mission of the Spirit isn't about collecting power for service. It's about developing a divine, universal love, demonstrated through supreme humility and those critical, gentler virtues.
And the source urges this final, humble confession, that maybe we sought the power of the Spirit in pride and selfishness first,
We wanted power to do things for God.
instead of yielding ourselves to be filled with love and humility so that we could be like God.
When we make love the primary object, the primary test,
The necessary power of the Spirit for service will come naturally.
the power follows the character. So we'll leave you with this provocative thought. We are taught that loving our difficult, unlovable brother is the only proof of our love for God. Given all the divisions we face every day, political, social, and the office, how drastically would our interactions change if we truly believe that God dwells in us, only to the extent that we make loving the difficult person right in front of us the one absolute joy and necessity of our spiritual life? What concrete, difficult relationship in your life currently serves as the required, unavoidable proof of your love for God? Something to really mull over.